This is Tuesday, November 25th, and this is the Community Preservation Committee. I'll start with a roll call. Andrew,
He was here just a second ago.
He's on mute.
Sorry, I'm here. Present. Planning board.
Okay, Nancy,
Nancy Nelson, Historical Commission appointee.
Diane,
Diane Proctor, Select Board appointee.
Ed,
Edward Larner, housing appointee.
Jeff,
Jeff Collins, Select Board appointee.
Burton,
Burton Flint, Select Board appointee.
Matt,
Matt Boger, Concord Recreation.
and Bill.
Bill Cremeza, Natural Resources Commission appointee.
And my name is Eve Eisenberg. I'm a Select Board appointee, and I believe we have a full house. That's fantastic. The whole committee is here. Yay. Okay, we have another full agenda, and I would like to get started. The minutes came out kind of last minute, and I'm aware of that. I'm wondering if anybody did not get to read the minutes and they want to push another week for that to give them a chance to read the minutes, or if everyone's already read them. It looks like, Diane, you need some more time.
I need more time, Eve. I tried to get to it today, but we were traveling and I just didn't get there, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's totally copacetic, and we will push these minutes from October 28th and 11/4 down to next meeting, which is December 2nd. And I think we might even have a third set of minutes to look at by then too.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to table those minutes. Okay. The goal today is to continue to look through these applications one by one on their individual merits. As some of you have had a chance to read your email, the late breaking news is we think our funding numbers are in, and we have a little bit more than we thought, which is good news. But we will, of course, keep a handle on the big picture as we go. But I do want to pay respect to all the people who have applied and presented to us by giving each application its fair review. So just like the last meeting that we had, which was earlier in November, we're going to go through these applications one by one and put them in a bucket of probably yes, or maybe, or probably not, so that at the end of next meeting, we can have a sense of where things would be if we funded what we're saying we want to fund. Does that make sense, everybody?
Mhm.
All right, and I think I would like to start with this extension request, 619, the Warner's Pond Boat Slot improvements. We've talked about this before, but some people were missing meetings, or I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to catch up. So the sense of it is that Adelia would like to extend a portion of this application, but not all of it, and the remainder would come back and be used in our current budget to fund projects this year. That's the sum of it. And the last time we met, Andrew astutely noticed that this, what do you call it? The 20% contingency may or may not be allowed. We can choose to fund that or not. And I would like Anne, if you have any further information from Delia on what she wants to do, would you let us know?
Hi, sorry, she has not made any additional requests. The request is the one that she presented.
All righty. Well, then I would like to put this in one of our three buckets of maybe yes, maybe no, so that we can continue shuffling things on our spreadsheet. Does anybody else have any comments or questions about this extension request?
Yeah, I just briefly, the original amount that was in that account, of course, was $500,000. They expended 3,000. If I'm not misreading this, $3,000 of it, 3,021, and they have a balance of $496,979 as I looked it through. The request was for 244 from Delia, and that made sense to I'm sorry, it's 264,000 because she had the additional 20,000 for the amount of money. I just want you to know, maybe you've done this already, Eve or Ann, but I've been trying to keep a track of the amount of money that the Natural Resources wants to return or should return to us. So I've been trying to watch that carefully. We won't hit, if I'm not mistaken, we won't hit 500,000 if we put in the extra contingency amount, the 20,000. In other words, we suggested we wanted $500,000 back, if I'm not misreading this. And so in order to get that, we would want to consider funding this for 244,000 instead of the 264. I can talk about it later, but just tonight, no.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Bill. And I'm just going to nitpick your numbers. The boat launch was 220 and she's asking for an additional 20%, which is 44,000. And you're right, that adds up to 264,000.
Right.
But yeah, that is an excellent point and one we should discuss.
Okay.
Diane?
Oh, I'm sorry, there's Christine. I continue to remain confused. And I'm sorry, Bill, that I am. I
Sure.
continue to remain confused about the various pockets of money that we have given to various enterprises for the NRC. And I think that I would like us to hold this discussion until we can rather separately look at all of the money that we have, in fact, on a spreadsheet. Look at the money we have given in the past, its status at the present moment. And maybe you all can see that, and I can't because I'm in New Hampshire, so I can't double jog here between one site and another. And I'm not very good at that anyway. But I would really like us to see exactly how much we've given before, what the positions are of each of these, or is of each one of them, and then collectively determine where we stand right now. Because as much as I have looked at this and tried to study it, at least I personally remain a bit confused. And I would like us to really be clear about that. So, and I may be alone, and if everybody else is clear, I will
Diane,
stand down.
I think if you're confused, Diane, I'm sure other people are confused too. I'm sure of it. So I'm going to ask Anne to go find her past project spreadsheet with the green bars on it, if you know what I mean, Anne, and we'll talk about that in 1 second, Diane. So I'm going to put a pin in that, but that's a very important point too. I'd like to hear what Jeff has to say while Anne's gathering her spreadsheet.
Thanks, Eve. So I like the idea of permitting NRC to retain some of these funds to invest in access improvements at Commonwealth Ave. I think it's good for public access and for actually reducing sort of sedimentation runoff and other issues that are associated with that parking lot currently into what's now Warner's Pond, and in any fashion of future, as we talked about. But I think that this is a lot of money for that. On the Warner's Pond Task Force, a couple different work groups contemplated enhancements of the pond area, including that parking lot. And I think we budgeted, it was under $100,000. That was not based on thorough design or getting quotes, etc. But we're not seeing that for this request either. So I think a little more detail on where that number comes from would be helpful. One other thought, Bill will remember this, is that we had talked about some other recreational enhancements around that area. So maybe if Delia said Commonwealth Ave access enhancements and other recreational enhancements, as discussed in the Warner's Pond Task Force, there could be.
But I think we're only dealing with the application from several years ago. So it's sort of just the one use that was in the application that we're extending, not to go further at this point. And I might be out of turn. I don't know, but I think it's kind of keep it in. I think it's one of these requests where you have to keep it in its lane as an extension.
That's right,
Andrew. Going back to my original comment, I would look back at that budget, which I think was below $225,000, $220,000.
Yeah, no, I had the same thought, Jeff, when I first saw it, but I was not on the committee at the time that the original application was accepted and voted on and approved at town meeting. So I think it requires going back to that original application to see what the 220 was about. But instead, I haven't forgotten you, Diane, but we're going to quickly.
I'm just saying yes.
Okay, Burton.
Thanks, Eve. There's been a lot of passage of time and a lot of water under the bridge, so to speak, at Warner's Pond. we provided, we were, as a committee, and I was on the committee when this funding was approved, this idea for making boat landing improvements there when it was part of a larger proposal to improve the pond and make it more boatable. If anybody, I haven't actually boated across that pond in a number of years, but last time I did, it wasn't so much of as a paddle as a push, because it's the water is it's so there's so much sediment that's accumulated that it's. I mean, I think in not too many more years, you won't be able to move a boat across the pond. I think the idea of a boat launch there and spending this much money on a boat launch for a pond that's increasingly degraded in terms of it being a sort of a navigable waterway, I think we should reconsider as a committee, and it should stand on its own 2 feet as its own application. When this was part of an application, it was part of a larger application that included dredging. And that was part of the planning. So I personally, it's been out there for a long time. It's a big chunk of money. It was part of a larger application. I think if they want to consider improvements there, which at the time I was hugely in favor of having, parked there and, done the overnight camping as a scout parent on the island and dealt with that landing. I'm not sure I would vote the same way. So I don't think we can peel it out. That's my view.
Thank you, Burton. So we have Burton leaning in one direction. And Bill, do you want to add?
I wonder if I could share just a little piece of a Excel spreadsheet for us to get a little clarity. Speaking about what Diane had just mentioned about the 3 funds that were put aside for Warner's Pond.
Well, actually, you don't have to because Anne has it, and I think she might be ready. Anne, are you ready?
Yes. Let me just.
Let me see if Anne has what you want, Bill, okay?
All right, the other thing, well, since I have the floor anyway, I also want to say it depends on the time of year too, Burton, when you're trying to get across the pond. It's more the plant life than it is the sediment on the bottom. It's the plant life that's blocking our passageway, which we're hoping to address in the next
and
year.
Those things are connected for sure.
Though,
Okay.
I mean, Bill,
it's
about 18 to 24 inches deep across most of that area.
Well, yes, and again, someone who's done a lot of look at this pond.
Yeah.
There are pockets like that, surely. Yeah. I've kayaked it even as late as September, October. So I've been out there a lot.
All right. Thank you for commenting on your experiences on the ponds, fellows. Let's see what Anne has to say about the NRC applications that are hanging around.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So these are the numbers that Bill had brought up earlier. So the original 500,000 grant, some money has been spent. So there's 496,978 left. There's a partial extension request for 264,000 that included the, you can correct me. I think it was 244 to begin with, or 220 to begin with, and then 44
You got it.
Contingency, right? And then, so the request was just for this amount. So potentially there's a fair amount of money that could be returned to the CPC. And then for this other Warner's Pond dredging application, this also is beyond the 30-month period, and the entire amount, I think, would be returned.
So, and just to intercede, Delia has not requested an extension of that, so that we can request be refunded, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and I
And
think we
then
should do
the
that,
third
people.
one.
Okay, and just for clarification, the next one, the 05, which is probably not beyond the 30 months, which is another $550,000 for design, construction, improvements, recreation, etc. I presume that if Delia were to say to us, gosh, we're not going to use that and we should return it, that we would be looking at a substantially larger return of money than we presently have. Now, if that's wrong, I would love to be so appraised.
I believe that we have to wait till next year when it's out of date, when the 30 months has passed, to ask for it back. And I realize that the dredging is a unique circumstance, but I'm not sure if we want to set a precedent for people asking for money back from applicants when their term has not expired yet. That's
But
what
I
I'm
don't
worried
think,
about.
look, my concern, my thought, and I would love to have some clarification from this legally, is
Yeah.
that we're not requiring it back. We're asking Delia to return it because they're not going to be using it. So, I
That's
mean,
where I disagree with you, Diane. There is a
okay,
plan to use it.
all
That's where that's the where
550,000?
that is the core. No, 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 not five. No, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, Ann, I think the balance in that fund, if I'm not mistaken, is about 100. You say 193? I thought it was 143,000, but let's say it's 193,000. That's what's available, and the hope is that the new management committee can use that money to start a 5-year plan to get that pond in a place where we feel comfortable that's moving towards restoration. That was the plan all along in the task force this year. This was
Well,
not dredging money. This
okay,
was money for restoration.
I appreciate that, Bill, so much that clarification. I would say that when the application originally came in, that was not in my recollection, and I was paying very close attention to how it was prepared, how there is described as being used. But I can see what you're saying, and thank you.
Okay. So there are other NRC applications hanging out there, and we have received many extension requests, including the White Pond program. And actually, I have a whole pile of extension requests that I've read through on my desk here. But I was thinking maybe we would deal with the other extension requests later because unless we're feeling like we're not going to extend any applications or we're really feeling like we don't want to give these people another year to finish their work, it doesn't really apply to today's applications and budget. Does that make sense? The only one that really applies today is this one from Delia, because she's effectively offering to send some money back to us immediately. Does that make
Eve, I'd
sense?
still like to show, if I could, part of my Excel spreadsheet. It's a much more condensed, and I like to see whether I'm correct in this. Take about a minute.
Well, I don't have the ability to make you a host, but maybe Anne could do that.
Ann?
Have you tried to start sharing? Usually,
No, I haven't tried.
why don't you try and then
You know what? Truth is, I don't even know how to share anymore. Oh, I see it. I see it. I got it. I just sent a request to share.
Okay, here you go.
All right, let's see. Let me move this over, see if people can see this. Can everyone see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Here are the three applications, the three funding sources by our numbers. 619, it was a dredging and boat launch improvement, FY 21, maybe it was 22, I'm not sure how we count this. The amount was 500,000, 3,000 was expended. There's the balance, and Delia had requested 264, but I put down 244,000. The return to the CPC would be 252,979. Next one, the 920 Warner's Pond Fund on dredging. The amount that was given was $250,000. Nothing's been taken from that. That would be returned. There's the 250. And then for pond restoration, so far 356,344 has been spent. That leaves a balance of about 193,000 left. Is that right? Yeah. And so with that, I thought we could then therefore be able to have $502,000 left for.
Well, Bill, why don't you in real time change that 244 to 264 and your formulas should recalculate, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Nope,
I told too many sixes. Hang on. Sorry.
Right. So that's the number I got too.
482. So I thought, if you want to reach the 500,000, then,
Yeah, that's pretty close.
pretty close. And drop the extra amount of money.
All right.
Now,
Thank you.
I think Jeff does have a
Great.
point, but that would fit the requests.
Okay. Thank you. Would you mind stop sharing, please?
Sure.
And I'm going to hear what Jeff would like to add to the conversation.
Yeah, sorry, I was multitasking, looking back at the old applications, and the budget
Oh,
for
thank
the
you.
ComAv access enhancements was 220,000 in the original application. So that tracks, that doesn't, it's
Okay.
not out of the blue.
Okay. Okay, so just to sum up what the committee has said, or what I've heard people say, is that it's possible we might be getting more money next year from this last piece, maybe not, but we don't know. That we want to think clearly, think about whether we want to add the 20% contingency. Some people say that 220 is a lot of money already, but that we will leave this out here in the, I guess, the maybe pile. Is that what everyone's thinking? Instead of maybe yes or maybe no? Okay, we are gonna have to make decisions, but I just want to, that's what I hear people saying. All right.
Eve,
Chris,
can you just clarify that the discussion on this doesn't impact our budget numbers that we're looking at?
well,
Or-
it will, because the next thing we're going to talk about is the conservation fund. And I have a plan for that, and actually Bill
Okay.
is giving you a preview of that plan. But if I think I have the temperature of the committee correctly, I would like to ask Christine to weigh in.
Okay, but the numbers we got from Ann today showing the available funds do not include this return of funds, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. Christine Denaro, 189 Commonwealth Avenue. And I was one of the co-chairs of the Warners Pond Task Force. And every recommendation that was presented by the task force included improvements to the boat launch at ComAv. It is the only location on the pond where boats can be launched. And it, to my knowledge, has never been improved. It is difficult to find. It has minimal parking, and has no structure to launch a boat. The plan is to make it easier to launch a boat and to make it ADA compliant. This money has already been approved as part of one of the dredging requests, and we are just looking for this original amount plus an increase to account for price escalation for a total of $264,000. Since it has been about 4 years since we looked at that number, that it seems to make sense that there will be an increase in costs from that initial request. Also, the Warners Pond Management Committee has just been approved in November by the Natural Resource Commission. So people are currently applying to be on this committee. We're hopeful that this committee is going to start in either December or January. And the purpose of this committee is to improve the health and the health of the pond. And in improving the health of this pond, one of the things that we need to be measuring is that what is the use of this pond? Are there more people using this pond? So part of that would be, well, we need people to be able to get on the pond. And the only place where they can get on the pond is the Commonwealth Ave boat launch. And right now it's kind of a mess. And I think we showed you pictures before. And it would be so important, helpful, and beneficial to this whole project if you were to see it through, to be able to approve this money so that we can improve the boat launch area.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate you. I want you to know that we've heard you, and I appreciate your coming on and waiting patiently to weigh in. Burton, you want to add anything?
Yeah, and just as a reminder for the committee that in the last funding cycle, we approved funding to design a boat launch with ADA accessibility out of the park, out of the Juro Park. So we funded that. So that will be that the design and planning for that is coming. That it's not a sure thing that it'll actually be funded for the construction though, of course, but we are anticipating, or at least this committee was looking towards that there being boat access from the park.
Burton, in the presentation that was given on this application, we were asked why we needed 2 boat launches, and the answer was that this one directly gets you to the Scout Island, and it's what the Scouts use. But Christine, do you want to add to that?
Yes, I do. As I understand it, the Recreation Committee, and Matt, you can probably speak to this, but I thought the Recreation Committee had put that on hold for the moment. And I don't believe that there's an easy way to launch boats from the Giroux area. I mean, right now there's zero access to the water from Giroux. At least we have water access from Com Ave, and it's something that we can, I think, easily improve upon. So, and it's something that we can do certainly much sooner than waiting to hear what's going to happen with the dock or boat area at Giroux.
Yeah, I think there's a grade change at Giroux too that they're trying to deal with, but it sounds
Yes.
like 30 months might pass on that one, and we're going to have another extension. Diane?
Yeah, and thank you so much, Christina. Thank you, everybody. Again, this is the kind of confusion in which I kind of wade to sustain Burton's metaphor, because I think that we were building something off Giroux Park, and now it's Commonwealth Avenue. I don't think we need two. I don't believe we do, and I just think clarification right now before we go forward is really is pertinent. I think it's important, and I maybe am misunderstanding. But if I am, please clarify. Thank you.
Bill?
I have one comment that might help clarify. The notion was that the launching of the canoe or a boat launch in the Giroux Park area would be for people, and you're right about the change of elevation, would be carrying boats down a long trail to the water's edge. Because as you all know, it's high up on a cliff.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, the boat launch at Commonwealth Avenue has always been the one where people will get in there with their cars and launch their boats.
I understand that,
Yeah,
Bill.
and that is the big difference. The idea is to improve it so that people with even with other disabilities can launch the boat from their automobiles or other vehicles right at the Commonwealth site, which will not likely be, I don't see that's going to be part of. It was never the preliminary design for the park, for Giroux Park.
Well, okay. I continue to feel we don't need two. Maybe we don't need the Giroux one.
If you want to drive down to it, you're going to need two.
Well, you just use the Commonwealth Avenue one. That's all
Nice, it was improved.
I mean, were it improved, that would be the boat launch. Then everyone could, I believe that everyone could use, Bill. I haven't taken a canoe down there, so I don't really know, but my sensibility is that we're building two, and I'm not really, I remain unconvinced at this point that both are needed.
Actually, the funny thing, Diane, is I think we certainly approved the Giroux
We
boat
sure
launch
did.
while I was on the committee.
That's
And
right.
the other one happened before I got on the committee, so we should have been asking these questions when we were looking at the Giroux boat launch, because we had
Right.
already committed money for
Well,
this boat launch, right?
I think also
part
a
of that
factor for
was
that was that it was ADA accessible, whereas the existing, there's no contemplation of that with the current improvements, but the Giroux one was going to be.
I think just in reality, everything about the prior grants, the dredging and this boat launch was in limbo and up in the air, and we were looking at the Giroux Park on its own.
Okay, Nancy.
I was just thinking from a practical standpoint that the likelihood of making an improvement for launching a boat and providing access to the water is much higher with this current request for an extension than to contemplate what might happen in years to come as part of the Giroux improvements. Is that
Yeah, I
correct?
think the Giroux was for planning, not for construction, and this is construction money.
That's right.
Oh, but that's what I'm saying, that it's much further away.
Right.
That's right.
Okay,
For sure.
we'll hear the last two people, but I do want to move on. I'm getting nervous because we've got 5 more applications to look at, and my house is filled with people, which is why I'm zooming in from my daughter's bedroom. So anyway, yes, Christine.
So just my last comment about that is that the Scouts do prefer the ComAv boat launch because it's easier for them. They come in with like 12 canoes and whatnot to bring families and Scouts, whatever, over to Scout Island. And it was my understanding that at Giroux, it was not necessarily boat access, but water access. So it was really more of a dock type setup where you could fish from, you could walk on it. versus at this point more of a boat launch area.
I think that I definitely saw a movie about a handicapped person getting in a boat on the Giroux dock during that presentation. But anyway, thank you for that. Okay, Paul, what have you got?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to butt in, but I want to clarify. The status of the Giroux CPC, the Recreation Department has asked for an extension because they have other projects and one you'll discuss tonight. So that project is a feasibility study, but it's still on tap. The original discussion, and I was on CPC at the time, that there are two different reasons for these boat launches. One is to get directly into the pond, and the other one is to service the park and for people in the park. There's not a cliff there; it is a grade, and that's why there's a feasibility study that has to determine, access to the pond. So don't think there's a cliff that you have to throw the boat off. That's why it's, feasibility study to see just how that's going to go. So I don't see this being a competition between two boat launches. I see it as separate needs. Now, the long term of Warner's Pond is uncertain. If a dam is removed down the road 5-10 years from now, the only access will be from Giroux because that's the deep area from there. So I just want to throw that in there. We're not discussing the Giroux thing, but it came up. So I just want to add that commentary. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And I also want to mention that Ann and I had a brief conversation about what an extension request means, if it's an extension for 1 year or if it's an extension for another 30 months. And I don't think we've answered that question yet, have we, Ann?
No, we thought that would be something for another day since there's so much to get through today.
Exactly. So we'll just keep that in mind. It's not like keep it forever and ever, but it's just an extension. Okay. But I think I'm pretty sure that we've landed that in the maybe bucket. Unless, Diane, do you have any more thoughts based on what you've heard?
That's very kind, Eve. No, I'm looking forward to eventually the final. I'm going to have to come in and come and look at things again more carefully because I look forward to that. Okay.
Very good. Okay. So let's move on to the the Conservation Fund, TH 2604. And this was Jeff, Nancy, and Andrew's application to review, and we had a great presentation. I could have summarized this, but I would love for somebody else to summarize this. Andrew, would you like to summarize what the Conservation Fund is going to do? I just cold called you. So anybody else can do it too.
Sorry, the Conservation Fund, as I understand it, is and again, the presentation was brief, so I had to fill in a bunch of the gaps. I felt like I had to in order to research this.
Absolutely.
Effectively, this is a fund that is set up that is permitted under Massachusetts law that would be governed by the NRC and some other processes, which wasn't spelled out in the application, that would permit the long-term banking of money for the purpose of preservation. I guess that whatever mechanisms we have currently that are being used are considered cumbersome and too slow, although there weren't great examples, I didn't feel, of when asked the question, what would we get from this? There was one example of, I think, $50,000. And what was presented was this is a long-term ask that will come back year after year after year with the goal of banking a significant amount of money for the purpose of having it available in the event an unidentified parcel comes available in the future. I wasn't able to find anything in the long-term, the existing open space and recreation plan or the long-term comprehensive, the comprehensive long-term, long-range plan that actually identified what it would be used for. So it sounds like it is literally just going to be out there for an extended period of time. That's kind of my summary.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate the summary and the opinion. That's good. I think it's not just preservation, but conservation land. So we're not preserving existing conservation land, but we're trying to grow our conservation land, is my understanding. Also, that we have the ability to cap the like overall amount in the end. Like if we decide that CPC will fund this up to something like 1 million in the end, and they, you know, it keeps coming back as it's being spent, but we allow it to get up to 1 million or whatever that number is, I don't even know. It doesn't necessarily have to just go on and get higher and higher forever if it's not being spent down. And the last thing I wanted to add was that there was a way of funding a conservation fund in Concord before with town money, and it got disbanded a while back, was my understanding. But anyway, let's hear what other people have to say. Ed.
Hi, let me get off the, no, I am not muted. Most of us have received this in the mail, which is the Spencer Brook corridor, which is a program, you know, being, they're trying to get money to go ahead with this from the Concord Land Trust. And they're needing for this project, and this is not going to be the money that we're going to do, because they have a deadline of January in order to raise the money, which is $2.5 million for 30 acres there. But this is just sort of an example of what I think most of the people I've talked to everybody received this in the mail. It may have been something that just went to the trash, but they are looking to raise this money, and of course they would use the money that is already in the trust. The other thing is that the Assabet Ridge, project was originally from put together to purchase the land, basically from the land trust as well. So I think they've got a long history. I think it says it was founded in 1950. So they've been around for a while. So I think I think they make a good case here. Okay,
thank you, Ed. I'm not really familiar with the flyer that you mentioned, but maybe other people are. Diane?
Oh, hi.
I'm also unfamiliar with the flyer. It might have been a targeted flyer, but I'm just not really sure. I in spirit, very much in favor of having us develop, as do other neighboring towns, some conservation land, some money to to use opportunities to grab conservation land when it's available. I mean, in principle, I think this is a terrific idea. The application itself, however, and I don't mean to sound critical, but I'm going to be for a minute, the application was extremely spare. I think you really need, if you're going to create this kind of opportunity, you need a very formal mechanism. NRC needs to be kind of the overseer of this. They need to have a governing body that looks at that money. Maybe the NRC itself, or maybe something even apart from that, much like the housing trust fund. I mean, I think it's the notion is wonderful to have planted as an idea. But my sensibility is it's really right now a very raw and unrefined idea, and I'm reluctant to go forward until it's in considerably better forms. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Jeff?
Thanks, Eve. I strongly support this application. I think it's analogous to the Housing Trust
Absolutely.
Fund, which is an equally brief application because it's an equally crisp ask, I think. I understand the trust holds over $1 million of reserved CPC funds and is asking for $785,500 for analogous purposes when opportunities arrive. And the presentation made the case that opportunities arise between town meetings, and the boards we've empowered with these decisions don't have time to come to town meeting, or opportunities may pass. We're familiar with the Assabet Bluff project, a collaboration of open space and affordable housing. In that situation, the developer or local family or local developers were willing to wait for town meeting.
They sure were.
Most developers are not. And I think this is a reasonable use of funds that would be supervised by NRC. As Andrew pointed out, the Conservation Fund is established or contemplated in the state law that creates the Conservation Commission. Funds would be managed by the town financial office. And
Uh,
I spoke
yeah.
to Delia. I had a chance to chat with Delia, and she said, land acquisition always goes before the Board of Selectmen. It's not like the NRC goes in the dark of night and buys 50 acres.
Yeah.
A point
totally
was
agree.
raised at a previous meeting that the open space and recreation plan is 10 years in the rearview mirror, and there's energy to bring back a committee to update that open space and recreation plan. If you look at the last two open space and recreation plans, the priorities haven't changed really much at all. The priorities are well known. I don't think priorities will change in a 2026 open space and recreation plan. So I strongly support this application, and I think that a point you just made, Eve, that maybe thinking about a cap to funds, or what's the max, and then there's a topping off, would be helpful to contemplate for this fund and for the Affordable Housing Trust as well. We've talked about the funds returning from Warner's Pond. There's math to do there. I understand we also have open space reserve that was set aside in previous years. Delia did say this was an initial ask, but more money would give the NRC more flexibility to respond to opportunities that arise.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Diane, did you want to respond to Jeff?
No, I mean, I think Jeff's point is wonderfully taken, Jeff. I just disagree that I don't even actually disagree with you. I just think there is, as the application is presented, there is no formal oversight of the funding. There's no formal mechanism for determining how that money is being allocated or kind of adjudicated and spent. And I just think I think that needs to be in place before, just as the Housing Trust Fund was very carefully formulated so that those monies were carefully adjudicated and overseen. And I don't see that same mechanism. I mean, in spirit, as I said, my goodness, yes, but as it's presently construed, I'm feeling that it's fragile. But we both made good points, and let's hear what others have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. I just want to point out that there was a conservation fund before, and
but it doesn't exist now.
I'm sorry?
I don't believe it exists now.
It got defunded, and by the town money is not going into it anymore. But I'm assuming that this new conservation fund would operate the same way the old one did, and also that the conservation fund is only for getting land into conservation. And the housing trust fund does a million different projects.
It has expanded its definition.
Yeah, it totally expanded its definition. But I think that this is still just for acquiring land, and only acquiring land, which is which what we had apparently had done before, as Ed mentioned, and we want to do again, I suppose. I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry, Burton.
Yes, thank you, Eve. So I guess I'm a little bit agnostic on this proposal. Like the discussions we had around the Housing Trust Fund, I am a little bit wary of our delegating our authority out to a committee for the deliberations, which this committee has, I think, proven quite well over its 20-year history of taking on itself. And I balance that against this is obviously, as Jeff pointed out, as we saw from looking at our emergency funding rules, this is exactly the scenario, is preservation of land that our emergency funding rules were crafted around. So we anticipate these scenarios happen. But I just generally, I maybe it's being a little bit wary of handing over the authority to make the actual funding and project decisions to another body. I would agree with Diane that this application, unlike what we got from the Housing Trust, is pretty light on how it would be administered. I actually didn't see in there, Eve, a specific restriction, and I did a quick read, I apologize, that it would only be used for land acquisition and not management. And I think about the breadth and scope of the things that fall within the DCR's or Delia's departments in terms of maintaining preservation and all of the rest, in addition to acquisition. And I guess if we were thinking that this was necessary because acquisition opportunities tend to be, take at them or lose them, I would want to make sure it was clearer on that. And I guess I would want to see a little bit more in what the oversight was before we delegate out our authority as a committee to make decisions on particular projects. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Burton. Appreciate that. I was just looking to see where I got the idea that it was just for fund, and it says under budget, but I guess it doesn't say only. Maybe that was just an example. So we can get clarity on that from Delia. Andrew?
And we could certainly put that in the grant, right? If
Yeah,
as a committee
that's a
we
good point.
decided tonight that we supported this, but we wanted it to only be used towards land acquisition, that I think would be a limitation put on the application that I think would be permissible.
Okay, yeah, I read it a long time ago and I can't remember where I got that idea. Andrew?
Yeah, I guess part of, going back to what Diane said about the application lacking sort of significant specificity. It was brought up that this is everything has to go before town, but before the select board. The application doesn't say that. It says it's going to be administered by the NRC. The application doesn't say exactly what the money is going to be used for. So it is a very broad application asking for a significant amount of money with not a lot of meat on there for us to say, like, generally the goal is laudable, it's appropriate, like I have no problem with that. It's the four corners of the application. Everybody that I've heard who's commenting positively is pulling stuff from outside it and saying, we know this piece, we know this piece, so therefore it's a full application. And I'm sitting there saying, well, the application as written doesn't have all those pieces, so it gives me a lot of pause of where it's going to go. Oh, we can put limits on it. Well, they're not saying that. They're saying they'd like money for an extended period of time. It makes me very uncomfortable. And my summary of it probably voiced that as well, but I felt like I needed to reiterate it.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, your summary did give us the impression that you were not a big fan of this application. But what I'm hearing you say is you would like more clarity on how this land, what governing body is overlooking the acquisitions of land, if acquisition of land is what it's for, or other things, and how this would operate. Whether we, cap it at a certain amount, like more clarity on those types of issues.
Well, and also there was talk within the presentation itself about Assabet being the Assabet Bluffs being a great thing, that the housing groups cooperated and these other preservation group cooperated, but the application only references land preservation. So if the pool of money is then held only with the NRC, do we lose those mixed projects that everyone agrees are good? And does that go against what other town priorities are because we've handed over all the control? And then it becomes one group's priority because they have all the money. And again, I don't know. It's just not in the application to say this is how it's going to be governed. But
okay, that's valid, and I think that we could sum up some of these questions and ask them of Delia and put out in the package for everybody, or before our next meeting, some more information if possible, and then maybe that will give Delia a chance to convince folks that she's thought it through a little bit more than what's presented here. Or anyway, Diane?
Yeah, thank you, Eve, so much. Krista Collins Jeff's wife, was very much involved in the Assabet River Bluff, and it was a really ongoing project. I mean, we started with one place, and it was a moving target as we figured out ways to make that work. But I've heard in the past, just recently in this committee, in its present composition, a kind of a reluctance to help an applicant refine an application. I actually think that's a healthful thing. Because I think that allows us to use our money resourcefully and creatively. But I have not heard that sentiment in this organization as is presently constituted recently. But at any rate, I just wanted to point that out and to say that so that's enough. Thank you. I'll be quiet.
Wait, Diane, are you saying that we should ask Delia to refine this application?
I would ask her to refine it, but we have not, about other projects, we said, no, we can't. It has to be what it is. We're not going to let people come in and to change or refine or explain something. And so, I mean, I think that inconsistency in our discourse, I think, is something we have to just recognize and honor. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think what you're referring to is the Scout House $20,000 for painting application.
I am
And
exactly referring to
I'm just
that.
I'm gonna point out that $20,000 is not a lot of money.
Right.
And since he can't raise the amount of money to include additional scope, and I, wonder if $20,000, I guess it will cover the entire painting of that building, but we need to see more scope than outside just painting, that I'm hoping the Scout House comes back with a much bigger ask that includes fixing things in addition to painting. So
I don't disagree at all, Eva. I'm just pointing out a kind of the way in which we adjudicate things and a kind of consistency of perspective. And it was the Scout House precisely that I was referring to. Thank you.
I knew it. Okay. Mary, I see that you're waiting patiently and I appreciate it, but I'm going to go to Jeff first.
Yeah, just briefly, the application mentions, emphasizes that routine of conservation to reach out to the affordable housing committees to contemplate any land acquisition. So just, Andrew made the point, are we handing money so that NRC can go sort of acquire land on a dime? And it's just not how it works. And that's addressed in the application.
Okay. Bill.
Okay, just two points. One, I was thinking about things that I think Bert had brought this up. One is that if something came up, we might look at our own processes for an out of sequence application. The idea of an emergency.
Yes.
The unfortunate thing about that is we may have spent all of our money, and it may not be available. So that's one thing. And the second thing I did like that you mentioned, Bert, and I want to say I would like the idea of not necessarily talking to Delia, but if we were to approve of this, simply say that this is a grant for land acquisition. Just put that in as the requirement, which I think was the purpose. It may not be as clear in it, but we could make that clarity for the grant.
Under whose auspices, Bill?
Under the natural resources. Is that what you mean? Under who?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
The governing body would be the NRC?
Yeah. And again, they're not going to do it without all the processes they're going through town meeting, with the select board. They would never purchase land. They can't. But they would have that money available as part of a package to put down if the land comes up. I'm very curious as to what Mary has to say about all this.
Quickly, though, the precedent that we're citing is one that the town would own these funds and adjudicate them through the select board. Go ahead. Sorry, Mary.
That's
okay.
Are you right?
Yeah, so I do think, Mary, I just want to sum up quickly what I'm hearing, that seems to be some massively diverse opinions on our committee here, that some people really hate this and some people really love this. And the voting is on next Tuesday is going to be super exciting. Mary, can you contribute to our conversation, please? Maybe
I hope so. I hope so. I like the fact that, well, first of all, I like open space, but I do have some concerns about governance, and I'm speaking on my own behalf. We have not deliberated on this at the select board, but I see Jeff's point about this is similar to the Affordable Housing Trust, whereas it gives flexibility to act quickly when opportunities become available. It also, it's enabled by a legislation. But I would like to remind people that the Affordable Housing Trust was set up through a distinct article at town meeting. So the housing groups came and asked town meeting specifically if they're okay setting up an affordable housing trust to put money aside to react quickly to opportunities. Because that was that, they had to answer a lot of the questions that you're bringing up. So I think to embed it in a broader CPC article, I imagine people are going to want to pull that out and ask specific questions. So that's just my thinking about that.
Thank you, Mary. And I wish I could say this is the only application that people are going to want to pull out and ask specific questions about at town meeting. But anyway, we seem to be in a bit of a cauldron about all of that. Okay.
Thank you.
So just like we allowed the amenities building applicants to send us a list of answers to our questions, I'd like to do the same for Delia. And I'm also happy to reach out to the Scout House applicants and ask them how they can stretch their 20,000 to include repairs if they want to do that, but they didn't express interest in that when Burton asked them at the site meeting, but we could do it just to be fair for everybody. And then you'll get some reading to do before we have to vote on Tuesday, if that makes sense. Okay, moving on, let's move to the Assabet River Bridge, which I think Burton, Nancy, and Diane were working on. Hi, Diane, would you love to sum up the Assabet River Bridge application? Oh, yeah.
I've spoken way too much tonight. It's been something that was started years ago, and it's been exciting because the point was that if we got our application in early, then the state would be able to lean on and be able to cover a great deal of the funding. This would be a wonderful way of both making a connection safer for pedestrians and for others, and at the same time is a way of connecting West Concord eventually to other portions of, at the very least, the Baker Avenue area, and then eventually, one hopes, over to regular Concord. So we stop thinking of ourselves as two communities, but thinking of ourselves as one. But at any rate, I think this is a particularly important. We've been working on it for many years, and I'm grateful for the application.
That is an excellent summary. Thank you. Now, I just want to say that this has just blown my mind in my office that a movie on this bridge has won this bridge awards. Like it's unbelievable. It's the first time that anything unbuilt has won these architectural and design awards. So we would be looking pretty bad if we decided not to run this application. We would look terrible. So I would just want to point that out. But Burton, would you like to add to what Diane said about
Yeah, I would just add to it that this is, I think, a project that is reflective of the professionals, the town staff's ability in Concord to have a very long view of things and get things done, and as a result, we end up leveraging some great state and federal funding. So one of these you start out one of these infrastructure projects by doing a study on feasibility, and then you do a 25% design that gets you to the 50 and 75% design, and then at that point you go in front of the regional transportation authorities to get on the list of state funding. And so here we are, sort of in the final stretch on this project. It would be a tremendous connector. Because of all that work that's been done by our planning department, and prior applications supported by this committee, we're at the point where we're looking at leveraging a significant amount. I think it's essentially a tenfold in return on our investment in terms of state and maybe it's some federal dollars as well, to build this bridge, which will connect a couple of key things. We have the commercial and medical area there at Baker's Avenue Extension, and we have Concord Green. And for folks that are familiar with walking into West Concord from that direction, you'll know that the crosswalk is inadequate, or excuse me, the sidewalk on the bridge is inadequate, certainly for anybody that's has any mobility issues or is in potentially in a mobility device. And this would allow for that. And then the new thing that's coming on, which I think makes this project tremendously exciting, is the potential for a rail with trail connecting West Acton potentially all the way to Weston. This is something that's being investigated. It was not on the table when this was originally proposed, but for our purposes in the town of Concord, if you consider the Fitchburg line from West Acton to Weston, that means connecting our two train stations in the mix. And this could be a connector that would enable the MBTA to look at that kind of project and say, well, we've got a bridge over a river there. We can't put pedestrians on that bridge, but then we would have this bypass route. I think it's a tremendous asset and it could accomplish so many different goals. Thank you.
That's great, Burton, and I appreciate that you've been along for most of this ride. Nancy?
I'd just like to agree with that. This is a tremendous effort over, I think it's 10 years at least. And the detailed ins and outs of this project and navigating the relationship with Mass DOT and everybody else along the way, it's a tremendous amount of work. And they're now in a position to go to 100%, I think is what they said. I must say the drawings, even though I've looked at a lot of construction drawings, were a little beyond me, but it does reflect the detailed thinking that's gone into this project, including the timeline and the breakdown of the steps was included.
For sure, Nancy. Jeff?
Thanks. Yeah, Burton and I think our first committee was a West Concord Advisory Committee, and Burton appropriately credits the town staff with driving this vision forward, this project. But
There was.
I think was initially mapped or envisioned as part of this West Concord Advisory Committee priorities or master plan for West Concord. So it goes way back and meets identified community needs. So I'm a big fan of this project. I would, though, raise a question, still the newcomer here, of this is ticking the recreation and open space box. And I wonder if we decided that the Conservation Fund wasn't fully baked at this point, the only other open space tick we have is the Thoreau Trail, which we'll talk about a little bit later, which is also an open space and recreation. And I'm a little wary generally of putting funds to kind of that double box, recreation and open space, and we don't give adequate percentage to open space conservation. I think this is a great project. I really want to support this, and I hope we do. I think it passes with flying colors just on the recreation front. But I would think about our balance of funding for open space conservation, and whether we're really giving funds to open space, or we think in the grand scheme of continuing to fund the reserve for open space if the Conservation Fund doesn't garner support this year. That's all.
Thank you for your wise words, Jeff. I appreciate that. And I just, I want to point out what's coming is that what Bill already showed us in his little spreadsheet, it is possible to fund this round of the Conservation Fund with just money that that's being returned from the NRC. And I also want to point out that if we are asked for it every single year, that doesn't mean the committee is bound to fund it every single year. We're not tying our hands on that. Okay, so what I've heard the committee say.
Can I just ask one clarifying question on that? When we talk about funding this out of the funds to be returned, that wouldn't be in this cycle, right? I mean, it
would be in this cycle, Burton.
Right. So it would be. So if we said you're returning your 497 or whatever it was, that would be available for this grant cycle?
That's correct. It's 487. Yeah.
487. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So everyone's saying so far resounding yes. I haven't heard anybody be brave enough to stand up and say, no, I don't want the Esprit River Bridge project. So that's going on the probably pile. And we can move on to the Rideout Park court renovations. Matt, would you like to summarize this one? I know there's been a lot in the newspapers about it. I'd rather not talk about what's in the newspapers if that's possible. And I forgot to mention that there is a gigantic pile of support letters on our meeting documents to read. And I've read through all of them, and some of them are fantastic letters. So if you want more information about a lot of this stuff, it's on our website. But sorry for that. Go ahead, Matt.
Sure, no problem. Yes. So this is for repaving of the Rideout courts. The Rideout courts are going to be repaved. This additional funding would be to include or create post-tension concrete, which would be a cost saver and extend the usability of those courts from to more than 20 to 30 years. So the cost saving over a while would be a long period of time. The courts are going to be paved in the conversation of what they're going to be paved, etc. But what the material being used is the request for this that is in the application. Pretty simple.
Yeah, and I'll just want to point out that they experienced their lovely world of tariffs this summer and ended up requesting less than what they needed for the post-tension concrete portion of this application by quite a bit. They missed the mark quite a bit, and so they're going to have to figure that one out. But we're not allowed to raise our application amount to cover that, unfortunately for them. Okay, Diane.
Thank you, Eve. This is the third time. It's so unlike me. I'm usually just pro. But here I go. I asked them when they presented, was there any sensibility in the neighborhood that the sound issue would be a problem? And they said no. I mean, we can go back and look at it. I've gone back and looked at it, and they said no. And I thought, I can't really believe that, because the research that I've done and the information I have on the sound issues, and I even went on to say that, I don't want to redo it all, but Newbury Court was having some concerns about their extension across the road, near the country club, where some of these pickleball courts were going to be built, and they were concerned about the noise. And then went on, it was a wonderful piece in the Washington Post that detailed, it was about a 7-page article talking about the mechanics of why pickleball is so hard for people who live near it or adjacent to it, that it's kind of like a constant barking dog. And that it actually, according to this article by neurologists and psychologists, seems to affect all sorts of aspects physiologically in people. Now, I can't attest to the value of that article, but I tried to figure out a way to send it to you all. But if you don't have a Washington Post, whatever, you can't open it. So I couldn't figure out how to copy it and get it to everybody. But I remain concerned. We certainly have heard wonderful things, Eve, and about the whole kind of development and refinement. Wonderful. But the pickleball courts remain a concern. And I wonder if there were a way to pull that quietly out of the application and find a way to do a broader study about where such courts might be located that would be, less intrusive into neighborhoods, but maybe even more courts, to support the pickleball need and a totally understandable need in town. So that's that. There you go. And I see lots of
Diane,
so
I appreciate that you pretty much summed up all the things that were in the paper recently about these pickleball courts, because now we don't have to go on. Yes, we're aware that the pickleball.
I'm not doing it from the newspaper. I'm doing it from letters that I've read. So
there's a lot
of letters on this personally. So
for sure.
Quick clarification. I apologize. This has nothing to do with the pickleball. It's the material that's being used. So that's a totally separate thing. So it's going to be paved. It's being paved what? So the pickleball thing is completely separate than what we pave it for. So I just want to make sure that pickleball conversation has nothing to do with what the pavement is.
Thank you, Matt. That's what I was going
to say. You would pave differently for pickleball than you would for tennis, Matt?
Nope. It's the same. No. It's the same. We're talking about with the material that's going to be placed on the courts to repave it. So it's just talking about the pavement. The idea of what's going to be, if it's going to be tennis courts or pickleball, is a totally separate thing.
And how would that be adjudicated, Matt?
So the Concord Rec is having forums on that right now.
Well, I gathered, but okay. December 5th, I think. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, that I think it's fair for us to divide the three. They gave us 3 categories of what they were looking at doing to these courts. And personally, I would like to keep all the basketball where it is, but that's my own private opinion. It really has, my opinion about the basketball versus the tennis has nothing to do. My personal opinion about the basketball versus the tennis has nothing to do with whether or not the actual court gets repaved, because they have to sort out with a thorough public process what these courts are going to become. And it's not really up to us what they become. They have to do that regardless of whether we give them funding or not. So fortunately for us, we don't have to get in the middle of that if we don't want to. We could choose to not fund them because we think this application is bad, or we could choose to fund the application, and then they have to deal with a gigantic townwide argument about what's going to be pickleball and what's not going to be pickleball. And it's not on our shoulders, I think. Am I not correct about that? I think that's the way we stay. Anyway, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I was one of the people that was interested in this specific project, and I mostly was concerned about the pickleball issue, but and I agree with Eve that it would be nicer to concentrate on the basketball improvement. But me, the pickleball issues is already out there. I mean, they already are. We're not going to say that they can't have pickleball or something like that. That's it's and the arguments go back and forth. But the one thing I do think we do have some say on it is that one of the options is lighting at night. And the people that I talk to say this is the biggest problem. People that live near parks and so forth, and schools, and I've talked to probably dozens of people about this issue, is that one point of view is that the kids, they make a lot of noise at recess and so forth like that, but they kind of like the fact that, that's part of the neighborhood. So, but if we put the lighting in there, I think it's going to increase the resistance and so forth, or the discomfort for the people that have to listen to the amount of noise that would be generated. And by putting in, the really good service there, you read about pickleball. It's gone so far as there's a national. Like golf, they have these tournaments, that attract, thousands of people and so forth. So if we put in a really first class service there, I think that just is going to encourage more discontent with the anti-pickleball people.
Okay, Ed, I just want to point out a quick point of order that they are not the lighting is not part of this application at all. That they were going to put in pipes into the pavement for possible future wiring of lights, but under no circumstances is any of the money that we are looking at here going to lights at all. It's just going to in fact, I think they're probably going to have to take that out because the steel got so expensive. That's probably going to come off the list of things to do.
Yeah.
But
that's good. I just saw it on the active device thing that was one part of. It was an option on one of the options.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure of that too, Ed. I had the same thought as you because I don't want to get into a dark sky requirement lighting disaster situation either. But the presenter at the time he presented said that
exactly
the lighting
right.
was not part of this application. It's just for resurfacing and whether they use post-tension concrete or not. And that's now their problem because they can't really afford the steel. But anyway.
Eve is spot on right.
Does anybody else have any feelings, not about pickleball, but just about what these folks presented about resurfacing and how you might be leaning or feeling about this application? Not about the pickleball? Yes, go ahead, Andrew.
I generally love the idea of spending a little bit more money now to save money in the future. And this was a very clear example where good planning could save a lot of money. And it seems like regardless of what the use is, I'm disappointed they're not doing it for the basketball court too. I know it doesn't get the same kind of use as a tennis court, but I fully support it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Diane?
Well, as a basketball family, I can see we have a bias on this committee. I just want to say that the minute we go ahead with the funding, with the paving, then we're opening up the pickleball option. And so I just want us to understand the implications of that. I suspect this might be one that is pulled right off our town meeting presentation.
Yeah, that's entirely possible that our entire warrant article will be completely disemboweled in the middle of the meeting. But I'm kind of counting based on last year that there were like 200 people left in the meeting. It was just me and Burton and 198 of our neighbors voting by the very, very end that hopefully we'll
198
be okay.
was generous.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, whatever. If we get there and they pull this out, then that's the situation. But our job is to look at the application and based on it, the applicant's presentation and their materials determine
Totally.
merit.
Yes,
Totally agree. I just think it's going to be I think there will be people who feel that just by the very approval of the funding, that this will then make it kind of axiomatic that they will become pickleball courts.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll put that into the presentation that why TBD pickleball versus tennis and that the public process will follow after.
That would be really, that would be,
Yeah.
Eve, that's brilliant. I mean,
Okay.
that's really an important distinction to make.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is it the case that these are two mutually exclusive pursuits? Because I've played pickleball on tennis balls or tennis courts before. Maybe it's because we were so amateurish that it didn't
Well,
matter. But
Nancy, they've been playing pickleball on the tennis courts, these pickleball players
Yeah.
with their temporary. So anyway, the proposal was to see if we wanted to make it more permanent, and that's just not my problem. It's
no, I agree with that.
Yeah, it's resurfacing or not resurfacing, and steel or no steel, and good luck with the funding that you asked for because you can't pay for what you want anyway. That's where we're at.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Or not to resurface, that is the question. But just no, oh wait, be quiet.
Exactly. Right.
But my question still stands. Can you adapt it for both?
Are you saying then tennis players deal with the pickleball net being in the middle of the tennis court?
Take it down and put something else up. I've seen anyway, that's another discussion, but I've seen tennis courts repurposed for pickleball and go back to tennis courts.
Matt?
Yeah, so I just want to be clear that it's going to be resurfaced regardless. There is funding already to pave it with asphalt. This request is to put post-tension in to have a 20 to 30 year extension of the pavement. Yeah. So really, if there's pickleball or not, that's going to be a discussion regardless of whether we fund it or not, because it will be repaved with asphalt and you will still have the pickleball or tennis conversation. So I know that we're getting, it's just about the pavement period, not the determination of what it's being used for. Thanks.
Martin.
I just want to say that this whole discussion is why I love being on the CPC. I had read the bridge articles and I had read the letters, and my impression was, gosh, we can't fund pickleball down there at Rideout because all these people, and then I was really impressed by the letters that were saying, hey, we're neighbors and sometimes we can't think straight because of pickleball, but we want to work with people. Like, they were very balanced, really nice letters. And I want to give credit to the people that did write in letters. And then I come to this meeting and I listen to Matt and Andrew and Eve yourself talking about, we're not the adjudicator on pickleball versus tennis. We are the adjudicator on making a wise investment in a surface that can be used for multi-sports, and whether we want to invest in one that lasts 10 years or 30 years. And I will tell you that in the course of this discussion, I've gone from, I want more questions answered to, this is a great idea. And I won't tell you yet. I'll save it for next week. But I just very impressed with this conversation, and I commend this committee members, and in particular, I commend the neighbors who voiced their opinions in such a constructive way. Thanks.
Yes, and don't forget about the basketball.
I'm going to burst in, even just say that as President Bush used to say, are we the decider or not? We're not the deciders. Okay.
Jeff, do you want to add more to the conversation?
Yeah, my routine of a question being a question or a point being a question. So one of the elements of the application is feasibility. And Eve, you've raised this flag of price escalation, et cetera. I don't know if we have numbers or insight into that. But at what point would we have enough information about an application that we suspect it's not feasible, and that would kind of color how we weigh an application? I'm not saying that I know enough about this application to be feeling that way, but we wouldn't charge forth and say, yeah, here's a bunch of money, but this probably isn't going to happen.
I mean,
well, I have to back up and say that I'm being facetious. They do have funding to do this resurfacing, and we are adding to it, and they will have to get some more as well, but it's not as bad as I've been sort of poking fun at the situation, because I don't want to talk about pickleball. But Anne, can you help clarify?
Yeah, so Phil Griffiths did reach out to see if it would be possible to rescope the project slightly. Since when he came before the CPC, you all said that he could not, increase the amount of funding that he requested. So he may be coming back at the next meeting with a new scope. And so we just thought we should bring that up tonight to see if you all were okay with that.
I think that's a great idea, because then we'll have a better understanding of how they're going to fund this the rest of the way. Yes, Nancy.
Should we call that a change of scope? Because don't other projects that we're looking at right now have an opportunity to have a change of scope?
Well,
Potentially, I mean,
that's a good question.
is this just, yeah, it sounds like it's a different project.
I think you're right that we shouldn't
Oh.
call this changing the scope, but rather answering some questions about how, they're going to deal with the steel increase, the costs of steel increase. We can ask them that question, and
Yeah.
then they might say, well, we intend to apply for such and such funding to help us fundraise to cover the cost of the steel increase. And frankly, just between all of us and everybody on this recording, that it's impossible that the price of steel might be coming down again
Wow.
with the tariff situation. But
I
anyway,
always understood we couldn't increase the cost.
we
Yeah,
cannot
I
increase
also
our
feel a little
funding.
uncomfortable about that. I mean, it doesn't give anybody else an opportunity to do that. I can see that they may have a different thought about how they're going to pay for it. That makes sense. But
Yeah.
allowing them to ask for an increase in the amount of money, I don't
No,
think
they're
that's,
not.
They're
not.
not allowed to ask for an increase, and
No,
that's
they're better explaining how the money will match the project. So they understand that they would be limited in that. This is my understanding of what was asked of them, is that they were asked basically saying the project you presented is now 20% more expensive. What is the new project that will meet that amount of money? Not how are you going to make it 20% more? And one thing about feasibility I will mention is when I was last on the committee, the again, back to dredging, the dredging project bids came in 3 times higher than expected, and the CPC still funded money towards that project with the understanding that something was going to change, but it was a valid project. So the feasibility part is kind of, this doesn't even rise to the level I would think that the committee would start talking about feasibility.
That's what I'm wondering, in fact, whether we even need to have any more of a discussion with them. I mean, I'm actually happy with their proposal and with their request.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to go over how they work out their full funding and how they're going to work out
Yeah.
their spending on this.
I
okay.
agree.
So, and it's entirely possible they won't come back anyway.
Yeah.
Diane?
Well, I mean,
Bill, and the reason it's important is that we may get asked questions in our public presentation. Having done that a couple of times when I've been chairs twice, and Burton can confirm this, I think you do get asked very specific questions about how things are going to be used. And I think if there's a clarification they're willing to offer, it can be nothing but helpful.
All right.
That's
Okay.
all. I don't think it's, yeah.
So that application went into the maybe yes pile from what I understand everyone's leaning.
Yeah.
And I want to get on to the next one because this is a big deal. I expect there to be a lot of comments on the Thoreau Farm Trust application, which I have Jeff, Bill, and Ed having looked at that. Jeff, would you like to sum this one up? You haven't had a chance to yap at us for a while.
I'll dive in. Thanks. I felt like I've yapped a lot, but thank you. So this is the concept of developing a trail from roughly Gaining Ground and Thoreau birthplace, Thoreau Farm, across town conservation land and town easements, across a wetland with a raised boardwalk, onto National Park Service land. This is going north to south, and then meeting up with the Battle Road Trail. This is a project that's been envisioned and pursued for, I think, over 15 years. I was impressed with the application that folks have pulled together, the kind of agreements and letters of support from Gaining Ground, Thoreau Farm, the neighbors on the cul-de-sac, the name of which I'm forgetting right now, Oak something, across town conservation land, so town conservation staff, and National Park Service, which Nancy could tell us is, well, I think Nancy was involved in early conversations, but getting National Park Service agreement for something like this is an accomplishment. So this would connect to landmarks in town cultural and historical importance of importance, and allow people to explore between them, the folks attracted to Thoreau Farm to explore down to the national park, and vice versa. And it would also create and supplement a beautiful network of trails that would allow folks to, extend around from kind of that northeastern part of town to the eastern side. So I think it's a really strong application. There's a lot of information in the package, and I think it would be a great asset, a great addition to the trail network in town.
Thank you, Jeff. That was brilliant. But I happen to know that Nancy has a lot to say about this. Nancy, can you share your thoughts?
I don't have a lot to say about it other than I think it's an amazing project that's been going on since long before I retired, which was in 2017. And you can see that. I know that the agreements with the NPS have been difficult to craft and to be approved. But I think Bill brought this up last time. Have I totally missed any environmental analysis? And I'm wondering what the park has done or what the town has done to mitigate the environmental impact of going across the wetland. I know when we went across the wetland in the park, there was a lot of really innovative technology in terms of driving the timbers to reduce the impact to what was around it. But I wonder did I just miss that? It's a very, very big application. But that seems to be a concern, should be a concern for the town as well as the park, I would guess.
That's a good point, Nancy. I think the first $200 are meant for design and the second $400 were supposed to be for construction.
Yeah, design, completion, and construction.
On page 7, it talks about what the design phase would be, that they have to do preliminary engineering, geotechnical, archaeological studies, alignment, civic engagement. And I think that time is when your question gets answered during, like, how will they get across the wetlands? I certainly hope that the engineers and the civic engagement plan would answer that question at that time. What do you think?
I would hope that, but this project looks really, really, really far down the road. So I'm hoping that that's a fulsome process, but I don't see a whole lot about that.
Thank you. Ed? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, there was in the application, they weren't provided, but it did say it flagged that there were 2 studies done to support feasibility on the environmental side by Mass Audubon.
Did anybody has anybody seen those?
No, nothing's coming.
I mean, I might have missed
pages.
it.
I couldn't imagine they threw more on.
And I don't think anything's coming in front of us. Natural resources, which is going to be an issue, crossing the wetlands becomes a big issue. So,
yep.
If I could just jump in on the Mass Audubon side, since that crossed my desk when I was at Mass Audubon, that was a sort of a scouting and potential path exercise. It wasn't, I'd say, sort of a pre-permitting exercise. So that that would be necessary as well.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It was a grand idea.
I'd also just say, sticking with that, on page 27 of the application, there's images of sort of a helical pier boardwalk design that has been used on projects I've worked on U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service properties and others. That's a very, very low impact in terms of soil. Much lower impact than sort of a 4x4 post driven into a marsh.
Yeah.
Human presence in that wetland and the addition of a boardwalk is a change for sure.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what kind of flora or fauna are over there, what kind of animals and what kind of an impediment to movement. I have no idea about that. So I don't know. Maybe you learned more about that, Jeff.
It's a nice wetland back there.
Yeah, beautiful.
I'd be interested to learn how far down they have to drill those helical piles in order to get through the wetlands and down below the water table. It's going to be a fascinating project, but anyway, Ed, did you want to comment?
Yeah, about the wetlands. They actually have 3 different routes that they're proposing, and they haven't really made the decision on that yet. They have one, the shortest one is what they're preferring on the thing. I actually went out there and looked at that the project. I didn't go into the wetlands, but I went down at the end of it. I think it's Elm Creek Drive or something like that, where there already is a affordable housing project from about 15 years ago, and
Yeah.
it's a lot. The abutters are really happy about doing it. I'm very favorable about having this trail because it's really actually with the trails that already exist going out of Gaining Grounds into Bedford, you can hook up right to the reformatory rail trail, which would take you into Boston or take you out and out to the North Bridge, and I think eventually we'll have all these trails that will be connected. I mean, that's what the Assabet Bridge is about, is connecting parts of the town. So long range, I don't think we would be involved in making the trail that goes north accessible, because it's not wide enough for a wheelchair to go through there. But my only thought was, and I talked about this when they brought it up, was that the first fiscal year expenses are just for the design, and it's less than the 200,000 that it's part of the ask. They're asking for 600,000, and I just wondered if we could put off the 400,000 portion. So and this was when I was thinking we were going to be short on money. So thinking that we had to do that. I think the problem is they need to have a certain amount of funding to be matched by the state and federal trails groups. So anyway, I thought maybe there was something that we could go back to them to see if it's possible for them to work with 200,000 on this year, and then at 400,000 in fiscal year 27.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. Bill?
Yeah, I think some of the things have been mentioned. Just to touch base, I agree with Ed about that. I do think giving the money for design makes sense, and let them then work through that design, that 200,000, work through get in front of the commission, for example, natural resources, etc. One of the problems is not just how deep you have to go, but it's the bifurcation of a wetlands and the parcelization of these areas. But it does make a significant cut through a wetlands, and immediately the corridor of wildlife is pushed back much wider than simply the width of the trail. That becomes an issue. So that would have to be addressed. Ed points out there are other possible routes. I think they're much more, I don't know if they're more expensive. I'm not sure how that works, but I think giving the money for a design makes sense. Just that part, not the construction amounts. And then also, let's see, finally, if I'm not mistaken, they don't have very much money lined up. As you say, they're looking for money to start it, but they are really, really behind in any kind of fundraising effort right now. So I would be in favor personally of looking towards the design phase and giving them money for that first step, and then let them work through that and see where they can go from there. That's it.
Thanks, Bill. It does say that they are funding from other sources is 2.787 million. And I suspect that is what they hope to fundraise using our money as seed money for that. So I need to go back to, does anybody know where
everyone hopes for money like that,
I know, right?
No commitments from anybody.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nancy. Sorry, Diane.
My apprehension about the funding from other sources, particularly funding that is federal, I don't know how secure they feel about federal funding, but right now, Park Service has had a 25% reduction in staffing over the whole system, I think, and projects for certain in, blue states, blue towns. I don't know how. I don't know. That's just, there's no way to know that, but that might be a difficult hurdle.
Yeah, that's a very sad point. Okay, Diane?
I so respect so much this discourse. And you use the phrase I was going to use, Eve. This is really seed money that we're offering. I mean, it's for design, but it also gives them an opportunity to go out to other investors and say, look, we have this kind of money going forward. So, I mean, I think that's really kind of interesting. And I think that might be a very productive way to use our money.
Yeah, $400,000 is not going to get them close to constructing this thing.
No, not even close. But I
Not
mean,
even a tiny drop.
it suggests a kind of, the 200,000 in particular suggests a kind of support from the local community in perhaps pursuing this. And Bill's reservations are powerful. So
Yeah. Ed, more comments?
Yeah, just the $200,000 when we discussed this earlier with the presenter, the matching funds that they want to get from Mass Trails requires a certain percentage of the total amount. So it may be 200,000, or maybe 200,000, or maybe 260,000. Somewhere in that range is what they need, depending on what they're going to ask for Mass Trails. So I think we need to get some clarification from them. If we're going to cut them, we don't want to cut them so short that they can't meet the match or get the match that they need from Mass Trails.
Okay. So Ed, what question do you want to ask them?
What is the minimum that they need to have raised in order to qualify for Mass Trails matching funds?
Okay. All right.
comment. Thank you.
Notes are taken. But I, in spite of our reservations, I feel like the committee is sort of leaning toward the maybe positive column for this application. So that's where I'm going to put it for now, if there's no other comments. I'd like to move on to the Concord Art Garden rehabilitation proposal from Concord Art. And Diane, would you like to sum up what's going on here with the Concord Art folks?
Well, I volunteered to cover this one at the very last minute. I'm in a slightly unstable Wi-Fi, so if I freeze, just please forgive me. I think that we saw the good work that has gone on internally there, and we've also seen the incredible building that they're doing, and so the whole establishment is terrific. But I feel it as a public garden, it rather misses the mark. I can't believe this is the fourth time tonight I'm saying, but wait, because I really don't see it as a public park. You know, I see it as a wonderful place, for people to sit and have a cup of tea, or a libation of one kind or another, while observing the art and enjoying the center. But I don't see it right now as necessarily a public facility. Now, it may be that they can do signage and things that make it more obvious to people, but otherwise, it's what I would describe as a very discreet pocket park that doesn't necessarily have the visibility that I kind of wish it might have. So there you go.
Thank you, Diane. And just to summarize the application a little bit more, it's for the ramps, the accessibility ramps.
It's for the ramps to get to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, that's okay. You made an excellent point. Ed again. Yes.
Well, I guess I didn't lower my hand properly. But
oh, okay. Nancy,
I think there are two ramps, one on each side of the building or something like that. So.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nancy.
Just in general, I think this is not really recreation in a public sense. It's an art association, and I think it will read that way. I think it'll be great, but I think it's not quite over the hurdle for recreation.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Andrew, comments?
Yeah, I was just voicing the same thing that I heard from Diane and Nancy. It's just it struck me as they were looking for funding to pay for handrails that entered their property, and their property is not public; it's still private. So even though they won't call the police on you, I guess it's not like it's not the true definition of a public space. This way I see it. Because they basically said anyone can come in anytime we're not closed for an event. Well, if you're closed for an event, it means the public doesn't have the same right as you do. So it sort of, it proved their point, or proved the point that it wasn't really public. So that's the only thing I just wanted to add.
I agree.
Okay. I have one quick question, and that is, I had a discussion with the Carlisle CPC chair, and she was telling me that Carlisle routinely approves historic preservation, ADA accessibility for historic, accessing historic landmarks and historic preservation type stuff. And I wasn't sure if this would qualify if they switched buckets to historic preservation instead of recreation. What do people think about that? Because it is I mean, the 100-foot ramp is on the other side of the park. It's nowhere near the park. The ramp that's in the park side is just a couple feet long to get to the one step up to the main classroom building. But it's certainly providing ADA accessibility to a building that we all consider historically significant in Concord. It's just the park thing is a big question mark. What do we think about that?
That's so interesting.
So I always thought of ADA as you're improving access to the it seems to me pushing it in some way, because you're not really, they're redoing the entire landscaping and they're adding what would be visually, but like there's nothing historic about the handrails.
That's true.
There's, it's literally just new handrails that look historic.
Well,
Maybe. Or they probably not, because that's not a historic thing in general. So I don't know. I would still be wary of it and want to see other examples where we've done this in the past, or people have applied for ADA for historic buildings and what that looked like.
Yeah,
I'm too new to say that I have any experience with it.
But Nancy has. Go, Nancy.
I also have trouble with this as falling under. I mean, the building itself has been so altered, and I don't see that, especially the ramps.
Okay, Diane.
One of the things we know, and Eve, thank you for reaching out I suspect to what's her name in Carlisle. Why am I not getting her name right now? But I know it so well. Anyway,
Barney.
Yeah. I mean, what we've already discovered over time that the way Carlisle CPC kind of interprets things is slightly different than the way we do. So I appreciate what Barney says, but I think we should stick pretty close to our own perceptions of things.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm putting this in unless somebody else has anything else to say, I'm just going to put this in a maybe not so much pile. I'm trying to be nice.
Definitely not so much.
Not so much. Okay. All right. Okay, before we take public comment, I would love to share, and let me just make sure I have this up, where we're at. Last time we met, I shared a little chart that I had made, and I've been updating it as we've all been talking, and here we are again. So the good news is this, with the funding that is available, we are almost able to fund everything if we want to. This 1125 column shows what we're looking at now. And I haven't even put any of the maybe not things off yet. Wait a minute. Whoops. This is maybe not. Okay. But aside from filling the whole bucket from housing here, and if we use the money returned from conservation to fund this conservation fund, then, and if we if we vote against the Scout House, which I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but if that happened, then we are only $912 short of funding everything else. So I just want everybody to breathe a sigh of relief that we might be able to do this after all. Or get close to it, that we're not in such terrible shape as we thought we might be. Does that make sense?
I really appreciate that, Eve. Well done.
All right. Well, now I'm going to get, now I'm going to go over a barrel because Anne's going to yell at me. Anne, go ahead. You can yell at me now for sharing my my screen.
No. So I just wanted to clarify. I think that was the older version. So you only showed the budgeted reserves, which was the 1.3 million, but but that spreadsheet did not include this new like surprise that the prior year undesignated balance, and that was the 796,368. So that wasn't in your.
Oh, let me share again, because I think, sorry, I realize lots of people have their hands raised. Hold on one second. So that is the intake for, let's see where, I know that's in here. So down here, I put protected surcharge, and then the state match, and then the earnings on investment. And then this is the total new intake number, which I just directly linked this cell. And when you add up our reserves from last year, the open space historical, I got 4.1 million.
Right. So there's one bucket that's missing. So,
oh, what's that?
So you have reserves from last year, 0.3. But what about the prior year undesignated balance for the 796,368? That's
well, that's amazing.
We have more than reserves from last year. We have an additional bucket of 700,000.
Right.
And what is that?
What is that?
I was surprised to see it too, because and I said several times that at the end of last year we left zero in the undesignated balance because everything was shifted over to budgeted reserves.
Random bucket.
Right, but then I know that any money that's left in the administrative fund would go.
What is that number? 700 what?
796, she said.
796,368.
Look at that.
Right.
Oops.
Yep.
Okay. So we can fund everybody and make everybody happy if we choose to. And now we get to decide if we choose to or not. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so I guess we're in much better shape than we all thought. And I just wanted to point that out because next week we have to vote, and we're going to vote quickly because we have 15 or 14 votes to take. And everyone's had a chance to comment on all of these applications, and we'll get more information over the course of the week, and we'll think about them over Thanksgiving dinner. And then we're going to vote on Tuesday. Ed, do you have any more comments about this?
Yeah, I'm going to take a victory lap a little bit here because last time I mentioned that I thought we were going to get a little bit more from the state, and everyone said, "Oh no, we have to be prepared." But I got my information from Stuart Saganar, the speaker at Carlisle, when Eve and I went over there for like a regional. He's from the Community Preservation Coalition, so he may be a good. He was the one that told me he thought we were going to be pleased when we heard what we were getting from the state. So that was the thing.
Our percentage did go down year over year.
Yeah,
in terms of how much it would match. So it's reduced. It's reduced from last year. I am really questioning, and I'm sure you've dug into this, but I would love to be able to trace these numbers back, this undesignated and unspent, these two different buckets to where those were last year, because we must have had visibility into them last year. And you were saying that this unspent one, I mean, is that like money that's coming back into our accounts from projects, and if so, that didn't go forward?
No, because there were no closed out projects last year where you returned money. So I was asking the same exact thing. So I think it might be a difference between projections versus actuals. So they had projected a certain amount. It doesn't, I didn't understand it either. All of this arrived late in the day, but
I mean, this is like a fire truck. It's not a small amount of money.
I know.
I don't understand it.
I don't either.
I would love to, maybe even, I mean, it maybe behooves us to have the CFO come in and explain, and I know they're brand new to their job, but this always happens at this last moment where we're like, what are the money, what are the funds, what's the state matching? But I've never seen anything like this where we have an unexpected $750,000.
It does seem really a lot, but I didn't even know, like, I didn't fully process what Ann told me at, like, what was it, 3 o'clock this afternoon? So I didn't even put it in my chart. But even if we didn't have it in the chart, we're still only about $180,000 off funding everybody, if that makes sense. So we're still in pretty good shape. But I don't
Well
know that we
taken.
have time to ask the CFO to come talk to us, but we can certainly dig into it a little bit further. And Ann's going to follow up and see if we can get clear on where that money is coming from too. Bill?
Yeah, I just as I saw it on the chart, and I've forgotten about this. We have a reserve. We have these reserve funds for open space and for what was it,
Recreation.
housing. If we have trouble with the way the governance is set up on this a notion of a conservation trust, could the money be put into the reserve fund? And would that have we'd
Yes.
have access to that?
It has to go
Yeah.
in the reserve fund, but we don't have a
Mm.
housing reserve fund. We just have historical and we have an open space.
So what I'm saying is the $500,000 is being requested for a conservation trust fund. If we're troubled by the way it's constructed, could we put the 500 into the reserve reserve
Yes.
fund?
If
Yeah.
you
Yes, we
need
can.
the 487,000.
Yes, the 487,000.
Yes.
Yeah,
Then it has to
Okay.
go into a conservation fund.
fund.
It
Okay.
doesn't go into the general fund.
Oh, you mean if that money comes back? Yes. That goes into designated reserve.
Yes, absolutely.
Designated reserve. So in other words, the
If-
money would be available at some level for open space.
Conservation.
That's right.
Yes, but if we decided also instead of funding this application for $500,000 that we wanted to make a contribution to the open space conservation fund separately from whatever may be returned from the Warner's Pond, we could also do that. That doesn't need an application to do.
Right. No, I assumed that. I just yeah, that's good. That's helpful.
Ed?
Yeah, just to finish what I was saying, next week, housing is the one that's getting the biggest hit on as far as the take is according to the chart. And I know Keith Bergman is prepared to defend our request. And I'm hoping that you will be able to hear him speak before we take our vote next week.
Oh, yes, for sure. Keith and I have been emailing all day today, Ed. And I wanted to, I thanked him for his volunteering, and he has a bunch of papers and stuff to send around in our package that we're going to get. You're going to hear a lot more from Keith for sure.
No,
And
I'm
by the
sorry,
way,
Ed, you said it's
Burton, I'm sorry. I just have to say, my little chart that I put up there is just my thinking. It's not, doesn't represent the whole feelings of our committee necessarily. We haven't voted yet. It's not official. It's just, we have to start somewhere. So I got out my Excel spreadsheet. Nobody should think that that's what we're actually doing necessarily. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Ed?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Okay, Nancy? Nancy, you're on mute.
Can you share that? Your chart?
Yeah, I sent
And
it out.
sent that out.
Oh,
sent
okay,
it
I
out.
missed it.
I can send it out again, but I have a live document and I have a PDF for people who don't have Excel on their computers. But if you have Excel, you can play with it yourself. It was just a tool that I created for this
It
round.
could be very valuable, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to send it out again. Just a
Well, I
quick
could
roast
also look.
of my committee. Who here uses
Um,
Excel besides me? If you use Excel, can you raise your hand? Okay, there's 5 of us, maybe 6.
It
Seven.
can open in Google Sheets also if folks don't
It can
have
open
Excel.
in, that's exactly right.
Does that, if you share that with us, does that need to be included in the current meeting documents on our website?
That's an
This
interesting
is,
question.
I'm going to jump in. Don't share it.
Oh,
That is, that's going to be deliberation.
Okay, well, Peggy, we are deliberating right now. We're talking through all of these
Yeah.
applications and we're going to take a vote all at once. So this
Okay.
is our period of deliberation, and I want to make sure that our committee has all the tools at their hands, fingertips. I'm not trying to trick anybody
Yeah.
or surprise anybody or make it difficult to think through our process here because we have so many applications and so little
Yes.
time to deal with
True.
it. Yeah.
current meeting document.
And just for clarity, someone mentioned it could be open in Google Docs. You are not sharing it as a Google Doc. You are sharing it as an Excel that somebody can open with. So it's not a collaborative document, right? I'm
No.
throwing that out there
Correct.
as a for the record.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Current
Thank you
meeting
very
Andrew,
much.
that was about, and I would also, And I will learn how to use Excel because Eve has promised to teach me.
Yes, I have.
Which is absolutely wonderful. And I'm sorry that I don't have it on my computer. One of the things I just wanted to say about the Housing Trust Fund, since it's come up and Ed has spoken to it so powerfully, I think one of the things we want to hear and make sure that we hear from Keith is the extension or the kind of way in which the Housing Trust Fund, we have Mary on the line, so that can also help. But they have taken on more than just housing. They've been covering quite a few things. And I think helping us to understand the way in which they've extended their largesse to support various housing endeavors is not unimportant for all of us to hear. Thank you.
Diane, you have jumped the gun with a trailer to Keith's submission to our package. That's exactly what he's sending us. It's a list of all of the things that they have done recently. And we also have his budget with how much money he has left over to work with for this upcoming year, regardless of whether, what we give him would be in addition to that. And so there's a lot of information, and I wanted to spend some time doing it, which is why we've looked at all of these other applications before getting to housing.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was always apprehensive about giving a lot of money to an organization, to something outside of our largesse, but I've been impressed by the many ways in which they've used that money. So I just want to make sure we all are aware of that. So thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Hopefully this package will be coming tomorrow, and Ann and I are going to be in touch about that. But
And I'm sorry I keep going in and out of video. I have a terrible cold, so I apologize.
So if no one has any other anything else to say about these 6 applications or the 5 applications for the extension request?
Burton has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Eve, I just want to follow up on Peggy's comment. Having been the subject of a open meeting complaint to the Attorney General's office, I do want to make sure that sharing that document, which I appreciate, is very valuable for the committee so that we can look at the numbers, meets the requirements of the law. You never know when somebody's going to come out of the woodwork and suggest that, sharing the information wasn't done in a way that was forthcoming to the deliberative process. So I just want to raise it that I think likely at a minimum it needs to be posted as a meeting document. Peggy's shaking her head. Peggy, I'm guessing you are more knowledgeable than me. I'm just worried about this. And Eve, I know you mean it in the best ways, and it's very helpful to have a working spreadsheet. But I also once got tripped up in front of the AG's office for something that was seemed completely benign. So I just want to.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate your experience and your warning has not fallen on deaf ears. My position was that I was gathering information that was already in the meeting documents, including all of these application amounts, that there was no new information at all in there, and it was just a structure to look at it. But I will probably heed your warning and not share this spreadsheet. You guys can go get on Excel and make your own darn spreadsheets, okay?
Yeah.
Don't look at my spreadsheet. Anyway, so
we should have a spreadsheet that maybe could be prepared by staff and put onto our website, right? If the staff prepares it and puts it onto our website as a current meeting document, I think we're totally fine. I think the concern Peggy may be raising, and Peggy, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in the way you present the information could be construed as deliberative or putting forth a particular position. But I think if staff is putting together a working spreadsheet for us to all look at, which we have done certainly in the past, that would be great.
And in fact, Burton, you are right. And Anne has been keeping up with her own spreadsheet that shows all of this information, just the way we did it last year. We didn't want to do any speculation on that official document that was going to go into the meeting minutes and was going to show our votes at the end. So we were going to save that and bring it up at our last meeting and go through it together just from her shared screen, if that makes sense. What I was doing was literally just a tool, but maybe people don't really need a tool anyway. It's fine.
I totally get it. I totally get it. And we live within these, we have to just be careful with crossing our I's and dotting our T's.
I certainly don't need any more hassle myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to make sure that nobody has any more comments. This thing keeps popping up in front of people's heads and I can't see who raised their hand. So I raised their hand. I apologize. Nancy.
I just don't understand why, if it's a public document under current meeting documents, why that's not totally okay.
Yeah, it is okay for it to be a public meeting document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't understand what the problem is then.
I,
Okay, thank you.
yeah,
I think,
my concern is you can't go back and forth
Oh, no.
delineating with
course.
using the document. Oh, I want to change this. I want to change that. That's all. Yeah,
Not outside of a public meeting.
right.
It becomes, sequential communication, and you can't do that.
Right.
So, okay, can we post something then?
no, we're
Because
not going to
I need
post
the
it.
tool.
We're not posting the tool.
I need the tool if you want it. I mean, that's not my.
But there will be a spreadsheet for sure under public meeting documents for our next meeting. It will be coming from Anne. It will be the one that Anne has been working on this entire time. And Anne and I had a discussion about whether we were going to be working from her official document or if we were going to work from my rough draft tool during our meetings, which is what I just did, was to bring it up during the meeting. But in any case, I think we don't need my tool anymore unless you're like really going to work on this over Thanksgiving, because by the time the meeting comes around, we'll already have in the meeting documents Anne's summary. Does that make sense?
That's fine.
All right, so I'm not going to post my tool. And if nobody has any other comments specifically about the applications on our agenda, I'm just going to we're going to move to public comment, and then we're going to talk to Peggy and Paul, sorry. Okay, Peggy.
Yes, for the finance committee, I really only have two questions on my mind. And one was the total amount that you have available. And it looked like there was a 4187 and then a 4984. So, but the upshot there is that you feel like you have enough money to fund all the applications.
Which we may or may not do. We haven't voted yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
but there's enough money in there. And obviously the only other thing on our mind is the toilet project at the high school. And I missed the last meeting, so which column is that currently in, Eve? Like,
Well,
maybe we'll see.
we have not deliberated on the amenities building. It's on the next week's agenda along with housing. We have RHO,
Okay.
we have CHMAMT, and then we have the amenities building. I didn't think that, and I was right, I didn't think we were going to be able to get to that today with all the other 5 applications, and I wanted to look at them too. But we did have, in fact, our meeting minutes, which are posted, do reflect that we did have a special session at 6 p.m. About the amenities building, where we learned a lot and we discussed a little, but we didn't deliberate. We have yet to deliberate on that one too.
Yeah, and I did see that. Okay, I'm not on the committee. I'm just listening. But we did have a trail last year where CPC, I think, was pretty positive about it, except that it didn't meet your schedule. I know that now the question of the sewer permit has come up. So I'm hoping there's some information on that, and I'm not sure whether you're going to put that into your purview or tell the school, yeah, we'll give you our approval, you go get that permit with your own money. But I think the finance committee is pretty anxious to get this over with.
Okay.
Can you define, I mean, Peggy, what do you mean by over with?
Well,
Are you going to go into a debate about this tonight? I don't think so. I think it's awfully late.
I don't either, Bill, but I just want, I mean, this
yeah,
is.
it's not on your agenda tonight, not at all.
Well, I just want to say that the school committee has made an appointment to go to the Public Works Commission. They are now on their agenda.
For
And
December
I
10th.
looked at it the other day. I believe it precedes our vote or our discussion. So,
No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, we are going to be voting
oh,
on
are
the
we
second.
before it?
Yes, but we will have more information. It will go into the package and be part of the meeting documents about what's coming from that meeting and what we may have to take a vote with the acknowledgement that that letter is due from. Can we talk about this next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be more coming about it, I promise.
We need more. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more
Thank you.
coming.
Yeah, our next meeting is December 8th, so I
Okay.
think a year before that. So thank you. And this meeting was incredibly interesting and well run. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Peggy. Okay, Paul, what have you got?
Okay.
Whoa, I didn't even get that kind of intro.
That was not a positive intro, I think.
No way.
We love you, Paul. What have you got?
However, I agree with Peggy. Great conversations. This is a great year to be on the CPC. Great applications, good deliberations, and a lot of money. So it's an interesting year. I do have one piece of information without weighing in on the Conservation Fund itself. I've looked into, because I've been interested on the governance of that. Let me read from the CPA site. It says using CPA funds for conservation funds. I'm reading, quote, a conservation fund established by Massachusetts general law enables a municipality to appropriate monies which the Conservation Commission may then spend without further action from the municipality's legislative body. So probably to be confirmed with Delia, but it's the NRC's money to spend according to the Massachusetts general law. I just want to throw that in there. Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Mary?
I just want to say that just because you can doesn't mean you should. I still think that getting town meeting approval would be the wise step.
I don't disagree.
Thank you.
Mary, do you have anything else that you'd like to share with us about our meeting today, since I believe that you're our select board rep?
I am, and I've learned a lot. And I'll wait until you vote, and we'll see. We'll take it from there, and then the select board will take it under deliberation to decide how to recommend when your article comes up for our discussion. So I'm listening.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Linda, are you still there? Are you tired? I'm pretty tired. Linda, would you like to comment?
I'm certainly not tired, and I am here, and I too continue to appreciate the quality of the deliberation.
Oh, thank you, Linda. Okay, does anyone else from the public want to make a comment while we're still having public comments? No? Okay. In that case, I hope every one of you has a fantastic, happy Thanksgiving, that I am thankful for each one of you, that you're part of my committee and I enjoy working with you. And I will see you on December 2nd.